Hello and welcome to this episode of Heels Off, Game On. This is the Sports Talk Diva, and yes, the heels, once again, they are off. The game is on, the mic is up, the diva is in control. So let's go. Want to talk a little bit about what happened in week 1 of college football. Oh, man, was there some action. Well, in some cases there was some action, in some cases there was not. So I have, some little disappointments, but let's get into it. We'll start off with, of course, Texas at Ohio State. Much was expected of Texas coming in. Like I said last week in my episode, talked about how Texas, for the first time in their program history, that they opened up number 1. Well, didn't take long for that to change because they ain't number 1 anymore. And I'll go into where they're at in the polls a little later. But to recap that game, wow. I mean, it stayed 0-0 for a while. So I was all hyped and excited. Like, okay, there's going to be lots of scoring. You got Julian Sand with Ohio State. You got Arch Manning with Texas. Going to be lots of scoring. Well, not to be. They scored a little later on. They got it going in the second half. But I was hyping Arch Manning last episode. Now, I did mention that he was unproven. So I did talk about the fact that he was unproven, but I expected great things from him being a part of that Manning pedigree. His performance was a little underwhelming, to say the least. Now, that had a lot to do with Ohio State's defense. They brought the heat. They brought the heat the whole game. I felt like he was undecisive in, his decision making down the field, as well as his accuracy. Now, did that defense and that whole defensive scheme have a lot to do with their new defensive coordinator, Matt Patricia? I think so. Matt Patricia comes from New England. He's been an assistant coach on both sides of the ball. He's won 3 Super Bowls with New England. So I believe the defensive scheme that he brought to Texas confused the heck out of Arch Manning. He didn't know what to do. Okay, so I'm going to attribute a lot of that to their defense. Once again, like I said, Texas was just, they were overwhelmed by what was being brought to them. So, little disappointment in how that game ended up. I mean, they were expected to do some great things and they just didn't. So, that's that on that game. I'll move to my team. I hyped them up. Yes, I did. The Clemson Tigers. You had the Tigers versus the Tigers. Death Valley. LSU's got their Death Valley in Baton Rouge, and Clemson's got Death Valley in Clemson, South Carolina. Well, that's another game that, I don't have a lot of words for it except for the fact that definitely LSU's defense controlled the line of scrimmage. Okay. I just bragged about Cade Klubnik, potential Heisman candidate. Well, that's not happening. Okay. He ain't shown no signs of being no Heisman, nothing. Okay. So that's going for right now. Our O-line, I talked about 5 of 6 returning linemen, man, they got their butts handed to them on the line of scrimmage. Okay, Cade was under a lot of pressure a lot of the game, and not only that, he wasn't accurate hitting some of the players, and some players were dropping balls. And then not only that, I mentioned it in my last episode about the concern I had with our running game. The running game was non-existent. We did not have a running game. Okay. Now, our defense was solid. I like what we did on defense. I talked about those guys in my last episode. They obviously got worn down because they gave up some points near the end and we lost the game. We took that out for sure in our own Death Valley in front of a sold out crowd. So I'm a little disappointed in what I saw in our offense, and I feel like, in order for us to make a run and to be back on that national championship level, we got to get some offense. Okay, we got shut out in the second half. 0, no points, nothing. Okay, we can't just score 10 points in a game and expect to be in the thick of things at the end of the year. Now, it's early. So just like with Texas and Arch Manning and all that, I'm reserving my, opinion on, he's just a bust or he looks horrible. And listen, it's like I said, it's early. So I'm going to let this season just play itself out and see where this thing goes. Now, I will say Ohio State looked like that team that they just picked up where they left off. And, so from last year's championship. But once again, we'll see if they make a strong run in the Big Ten and in the playoffs, which I expect that they will. Now, the other game that I thought that was quite interesting, and I talked about this last week as well, Florida State. They talked a lot of smack. Their quarterback and their players, they were talking a lot of smack about, y'all don't have Nick Saban anymore and so on and so forth. They gave Alabama bulletin board material. And I even said, it probably is not wise for them to do that because this is still Alabama. Well, it ain't Alabama. It's not the Alabama from years ago. They didn't look prepared. They looked undisciplined. Like they don't look like they were ready. Okay, so I'm not going to say that Florida State's going to be all that. They did look good. They backed up their words. They really did. They backed it up and they beat Alabama really good. Okay, to the point to where, yes, Alabama is called Roll Tide, but they got rolled over. Okay, so I'll just put that out there. Now, once again, it's just one game. So I want to see the consistency in Florida State. I want to see if Alabama can bounce back and make a run in the SEC. They actually dropped down in the polls, and I'm going to go over the polls in a minute because the polls, after 1 week, it already looks different. It's already mixed up. So I'll talk about that in a minute. Now, the game that I really enjoyed and I thought was the best entertaining game of this past weekend was Notre Dame at Miami. That was a game. Now, of course, Notre Dame went in with the higher ranking. Miami has moved up a little bit. Once again, I said I'll touch on the top 10 here in a minute. But that game was a good game. Carson Beck looked good. He transferred out of Georgia. He's got some really good receivers. C.J. Daniels had that OBJ type catch over Notre Dame's defender. That defender got mossed for real. Okay, that was a great catch. It was a great play. Miami showed up, showed out. They were hyped. They were ready. And they look good. Once again, we'll see if they can make a run. And, we'll take it from there. Now, some of the matchups that I would look for this weekend, and certainly it is not like this past weekend, but Michigan plays number 18 Oklahoma, and then you got Oregon at Oklahoma State, you got Ole Miss at Kentucky, and you got Iowa at Iowa State. Okay, so we'll see what this weekend looks like in college football, and I'll preview it again on I'll do a recap on it on next week. Okay, let's go to the NFL. Yes, dun, 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 dun. So the NFL is finally here. Okay, for all you NFL fans, I want to talk a little bit about let me go back real quick to the AP top 10 in college football. I forgot. So this week, this is what it looks like. It's Ohio State at 1, Penn State at 2, LSU at 3, Georgia at 4, Miami's 5, Oregon 6, Texas is 7, Clemson is 8, Notre Dame is 9, and South Carolina is 10. Now, Florida State was not ranked going into week 1, but now they are number 14. Okay. Alabama actually dropped to 21, guys. 21. I mean, a few more losses, they're going to be out of the top 25. And I forgot to mention all the hype surrounding Bill Belichick's college debut. North Carolina versus TCU. That was the weekend's wrap-up game Monday night, and I'm telling you, the stars were out. The stars were out. It was Michael Jordan. It was the former star Julius Peppers. It was Lawrence Taylor. It was Roy Williams. But baby, TCU was not having it. They stomped all over the Tar Heels. Okay? Just saying. Don't know where North Carolina will end up this year. Who knows? Like I said, once again, it's just one game, but I did want to touch on that a little bit. So now, back to the NFL. So I'm going to start with some of the divisions. I'm going to look at the AFC right now. AFC East. I like the Bills to take the AFC East, okay? I feel like the Patriots could make some noise in that division as well, okay? They got Drake May. They've got some other pieces. So we'll see what the Patriots do, but I'm still going to pick the Bills. I can't go against the Bills. They're there pretty much every year. Okay. AFC North. Once again, and go with them Ravens. I expect them to be there again. Hopefully everybody stays healthy. They're right in the thick of things. However, the Bengals could make some noise and make a little push in that division. Highly unlikely, but I would not go against Joe Burrow and that offense because they're going to score a lot of points if they stay healthy. I mean, they paid their 2 receivers this year in T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. Explosive offense. Where they've got some issues is definitely on defense. Defense looks horrible. Hopefully they'll look a little better now that they re-signed Trey Hendrickson. He should definitely be impactful with that defense, on that defense, okay, for Cincinnati. Now, the AFC South, I like the Texans. I like the Texans to take that division. I'm hopeful that Jacksonville will challenge them. I know, Jacksonville. But I like the fact that they've got Travis Hunter. He's going to start this coming weekend on offense and defense. That's what they drafted him for. So we'll see if he's catching balls and actually knocking, covering defenders and making an impact back there in that secondary. I like the Texans just because, hopefully C.J. Stroud will be back to his form that he had a year ago, almost 2 years ago, because last year it's like he regressed a little bit. So I'm hoping that, he'll be back to the form that he was 2 years ago. But that defense is ranked very high in the league. So I like Texans to take the AFC South. Now, the AFC West, who do you think that's going to be? That's going to be the Chiefs. You never bet against the Chiefs with Mahomes and the guys, and Andy Reid being the coach that he is. Went and bet against them. Now, that division could be real interesting, though, because the Chargers could make a little push. And I also like the Broncos. Yeah, Bo Nix and the Broncos, they look pretty good, and they've got a really good defense. So that division could be maybe one of the best. It could be very interesting. Okay, and because I'm a defensive girl and I know that defense wins championships, I'm going to talk a little bit about the top defenses in the league this year to look out for. One, I already talked about them, and that's the Texans. The other ones are the Broncos, the Eagles, the Ravens, the Vikings, and actually the Giants. Giants could make a little noise in that NFC East, but they've got these teams are projected to have really good defenses, so be on the lookout for them. Now, let's shift to the NFC. The NFC East. I'm going to go with the reigning Super Bowl champions, the Eagles. I don't really think they lost a beat. They lost a few players on defense, but the Eagles are going to they're going to show up. They're going to be there. And the push in that division, to me, I think is going to come from the Commanders. And I could be wrong. I mean, it could be the Cowboys. You never know. It could be the Giants. But I'm looking for the Commanders to make a strong push in the NFC East. The NFC North, I like the Detroit Lions. They're not being talked about a whole lot. They're kind of under the radar a little bit. People are talking about the Packers and the Vikings. But you know what? I would not count the Lions out. Now, I know the Lions have lost their OC and their DC. Okay, they lost Ben Gordon, they lost Aaron Glenn. But Dan Campbell's a great coach, and he's got some good players. So I expect them to be there to take that North. Now, who could challenge them? Oh, Green Bay, the Packers, and the Vikings. Okay, those two teams I feel like could challenge them, and that's a really, really good division as well. Now, let's move to the NFC South. Dirty Birds, that's the word. I'm going with my Falcons, okay? This is the year that we will take the NFC South. I know we're dealing with some injuries, some pretty significant injuries on that O-line and whatnot, but I feel like we'll prevail. We'll be there. The Bucks will be on our butts. I know that, okay? So, but I like the Dirty Birds to take the NFC South. Now, the NFC West, I'm going to say the Rams. The strong push, I believe, will come from Seattle and the 49ers. Seattle and the 49ers could make a push for the NFC West, but I'm picking the Rams right now. Okay? We've got some great matchups this weekend, starting tomorrow. We've got the Cowboys, and this is actually going to be a September to remember. A September to remember football opening weekend, hopefully. I know I hyped college up last week with, the 3 top 10 teams, playing for the first time, in week 1, and there was some disappointment there. I'm hoping that this September to remember with the NFL, starting with the Cowboys going to the Eagles, I'm really hoping that is a good and competitive game. That's what I'm looking for there. Now, you also have on Friday, you got the Chiefs and the Chargers. That game is being played in Brazil. So it's being played in Brazil, being shown on YouTube TV. So that should be another one that's good. It's the evening game. It's at 8 o'clock. Once again, it's on YouTube TV. The other matchups I like are the Ravens at the Bills. That could be an AFC Championship showdown. That could be a preview of what the AFC Championship game will look like. I want to see what Lamar with Josh Allen. I just want to see what those two teams look like. That should be good. The other game will be the Lions at the Packers. Yes, should be a good opening game. Once again, how will the Lions look without their OC and their DC not being there? And then will Micah suit up? They're saying that Micah. They're saying that Micah's going to get a shot in his back. So he's going to get an injection, and hopefully his back will feel good enough to suit up and go out there and make a difference in that game. So that is the NFL preview. I did want to go back a little bit to college and talk a little bit about the HBCU. HBCU doesn't always get a lot of love, okay? So I definitely want to share some information on some matchups this week in HBCU football. One will feature a classic matchup that's going to be between Alcorn State and Alabama A&M. You got Florida A&M and Florida Atlantic playing each other. Then you got Bethune-Cookman at Miami. Okay, so that's just a little bit of HBCU football that's going on. Another thing with HBCU football that I wanted to talk about was the Georgia Football Classic. It's happening in the A on October 4th at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Get your tickets. Support Mississippi Valley State versus Florida A&M. Okay, there's a plethora of activities that will be happening the week leading to that big game, but they've got tickets and they've got all prices on the tickets. But for $100, you can get club level seating, which is really good seats, and that ticket will also get you into the Battle of the Bands. And we all know the Battle of the Bands is lit. So get your tickets for the Georgia Football Classic. Okay, October the 4th. You can go to Ticketmaster.com. You can also go to GeorgiaFootballClassic.com and support the HBCU football. Now, one of the last things that I wanted to talk about is the WNBA playoffs are coming. Yes, next week I'm going to dive a little more into the WNBA playoffs, the 8 teams that will be vying for that championship. Now, we already know the locks of who have made it so far is actually Minnesota. They're in. Las Vegas. They're in. Atlanta, the A. They're in. Phoenix and New York Liberty. Now, we all know last year it was Minnesota and the New York Liberty, and the New York Liberty took it all. Minnesota, I'm sure they're really smelling that championship. It's like on the tip of their tongue. They're like, oh yeah, we feel it. We've had the best record all year. We gonna be there. Well, you know what? People think that's going to be a rematch, but I'm going to put my Atlanta Dream in the mix, and hopefully that's going to end up being the championship. Whether it's Minnesota or whomever it is from the East, I'm calling Atlanta Dream. So stay tuned for that one. Well, you know what? That's the buzzer, baby. You've been listening to Heels Off, Game On, where the takes are hot, the vibes are loud, and the heels stay off. Stay tuned for next week, and until then, have a week of victory and success.